Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it's yet another video on my 2024 NFL offseason prediction series. It's the Houston Texans. Make sure to like and leave a comment in the comment section below. All that stuff helps out with the algorithms, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We are so close to that 1,000 subscriber count. I also have like a members section that, once people start to join it, I'll start to put some stuff in there ahead of time. I got the deep dive series coming up. You can check in my community little page there and see a little preview of what my rankings may or may not look like. It's still always a work in progress. And something that seemed like more of a work in progress was the Houston Texans, and boy did they overachieve tremendously. DeMeco Ryans probably should have won Coach of the Year if it wasn't for Kevin Stefanski's absolute clinic he put on in Cleveland, keeping that team above water with Joe Flacco as the quarterback, all the injuries they had. But what a performance from DeMeco Ryans, this coaching staff, and this organization in general, and they are in a prime position to continue to add talent to this roster with the cap space that they have, with the draft capital that they have. They still have a first-round pick despite trading a first-round pick last year to the Arizona Cardinals to get Will Anderson, who turned out to be a great addition to the team. Of course, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Some controversy on Will Anderson winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. Personally, I probably would have given it to Kobe Turner, who, by the way, in my last deep dive series, tell me about that one, I definitely called how good he was going to be, so thank you for that. But overall, this team is looking more like what the Jacksonville Jaguars looked like last year. I think a lot of people were projecting Jacksonville to take a giant step forward, and now their division rivals, the Houston Texans, also took a giant step forward almost unexpectedly, maybe about a year or two sooner than what was expected, and now they seem to be the team set up to be that top 10 quality team going into next season, sort of out of nowhere. And they're in a very difficult conference, but they're in a division where they got teams sort of in flux, like Jacksonville. You don't really know what's going on with them. Tennessee seems to be in that rebuild mode, gonna be building from underneath for a while. The Colts are, what do they look like? They're a well-coached team. Can Anthony Richardson become something? They seem to be the team now that has the most stability out of nowhere. That wasn't the case just even this time last year, where they looked like a team that was hopeless. And DeMeco Ryans and this general manager group and the front office group did a great job. And it starts with how well they made the players perform and how they ranked up against the rest of the league. So DeMeco Ryans, the Houston Texans legend as a player, probably one of their best defensive players, one of their best players in franchise history, was tasked with something that was so incredibly unenviable, which was taking over the team at really its lowest point. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of upside here in Houston, and he immediately turned that around. We saw what he did with so many of these players, and we look at the offensive numbers. He brought in that Shanahan offense from San Francisco that we've seen work so well, and it really helped out with C.J. Stroud, the rookie quarterback. It brought Nico Collins up. Tank Dell, the rookie, before he got hurt, was having a fantastic season as sort of that number 2 receiver behind Nico Collins, who was like that bigger body receiver. They complemented each other really well. Dalton Schultz, coming from Dallas, he fit in well also. They even had some really good depth pieces there at tight end with Brevin Jordan, who finally started to show up in his career as well. Looked like a really good number 2 option. Could potentially end up being a sneaky free agent signing for a team out there this year. We'll get to that. But you look at these numbers, they did all this with a rookie quarterback, with an offensive line that had some injuries, some key injuries, specifically Titus Howard, who had just gotten paid. And, 13th in points, 7th in pass yards, 12th in pass touchdowns, and only second in turnovers. I mean, you're in the upper half of the league in so many of these major categories. Now, of course, third down efficiency, red zone efficiency, and sacks allowed, all those things can improve. The offensive line gets a little bit better. And they do that through being a little bit healthier. Juice Scruggs was a 3rd round pick. You want to get him more involved, get him more in a natural position. He was drafted to be a center. Michael Dieter played center quite a bit. Scruggs was going from guard to center, sort of switching sides every now and then. So you want to get some type of stability there for him. Maybe bring in another interior offensive lineman in the draft. And with CJ Stroud continuing to develop, as long as you keep him on the right track, the red zone efficiency and the third down efficiency, that's all going to get better because you're going to be able to go in to those situations with a much more expanded playbook. You hopefully are going to add some more talent onto the offensive side of the ball in terms of weapons and offensive line again, that are going to make all these jobs a lot easier for him. And I think that the rushing numbers are going to be what we need to see improve next in order to help raise those things up. Red zone efficiency, if you can't really run the ball in the red zone, then you are going to probably naturally have less red zone touchdown success, because the defense is able to crowd receivers. They got to be a lot more precise in their route running. The timing has got to be a whole lot better. So you want to be able to supplement that with the ability to run the ball. Maybe get Dameon Pierce more involved. Devin Singletary took on a lot of the offense this year, but he's just not that type of player that we saw Dameon Pierce be in his rookie year. And I think that putting him in those situations might be more helpful, or maybe just completely upgrading the running back room altogether to a better back than what you get out of Devin Singletary could be helpful as well. But DeMeco Ryans' biggest influence is on the defensive side of the ball. We saw the emergence of Blake Cashman. We saw Christian Harris have a really great season. DeMeco Ryans did exactly what he was brought in to do year one, which is immediately improve the front seven. The linebacking play was significantly better with Cashman and Harris, even Henry To'oTo'o, who they drafted last year. Their third down efficiency was so great. That's great game planning. The red zone efficiency was in the upper half of the league. They were in the upper half of the league in pretty much every major statistical category. They gave up yards throwing the ball, but they weren't giving up touchdowns. So it was that bend but don't break pass defense. That saw Derek Stingley really improve throughout the year. Got some good play out of veteran players in the secondary. Amos, Nelson, and Desmond King all contributed really well, and they really settled into these roles. And guys like Amos, who was sort of looking like he was going to be out of the league almost, with his time with the Jets and his last couple of years there, in Green Bay and everything, he actually performed really well with the snaps that he had. So bringing him back, bringing Nelson back, I think will be key to continue to build this defense up, because you do need to improve on the rushing touchdowns allowed. Generally, if you're giving up a lot of rushing touchdowns, it's a lot of short yardage stuff. So that's a lot of the red zone production that they were giving up was through running the football, because they weren't giving up a lot of rushing yards. So teams were able to throw the ball, and then they were able to play really strong pass defense in the red zone and around the goal line, but they weren't able to do that in terms of giving up rushing touchdowns. And that has a lot to do with maybe getting a much better interior defensive line to stop these backs from being able to get to that second level, because you got great second level play, but if your interior is a little squishier, a little smaller perhaps, maybe you want to get somebody who's a more traditional 3-down nose tackle type who can play on third down, than having guys like Sheldon Rankins, who has been good situationally, but he's also undersized. And Houston has all the salary cap in the world, $67.3 million. They do have some guys they need to bring back, however. There's not a lot of options for them to make cuts either. And when you have $67.3 million, making cuts may be not at the top of your list. So the cut I do have them making is Davis Mills, $3.1 million in cap savings. CJ Stroud's your starter. Case Keenum's your backup. I think that just makes more sense. Maybe you can trade Davis Mills and get a 6th or 7th round pick for him from somebody. I don't know, maybe like New England would want him. You can get a 6th or 7th round pick, but I don't know how likely that is. And you want to restructure Shaq Mason's contract. He had a pretty decent season, and you're hoping that compounding healthiness throughout the years, and you want to keep a good veteran presence and you keep the depth there as well. But the key is the signings here. You got 4 guys on your defense that were really key contributors. Steven Nelson, Desmond King at corner. Nelson the outside corner, Desmond King your interior nickel guy. You can get them for pretty cheap prices. Desmond King doesn't really go for a whole lot. They've been able to bring him back on some cheap deals just because he's really not an outside corner at all. And he's really is just a nickel, early down nickel corner, but he's played great in that role. So I think you can bring him back, spread out some of that money. Steven Nelson, somebody you want to keep as well. I think because of his age, you can get him at a bit of a discount price here. Adrian Amos, I think the same thing. 3 years, $21 million deal. You just put it all in the bonus, spread out the bonus, and then you're not really taking a cap hit there. But the big one is Blake Cashman, who, after finally playing a healthy season, became the player that I think a lot of people had been hoping he would become when he was on the New York Jets, for example. He's a tremendous athlete, great sideline to sideline play, and he's helping along with Christian Harris, 2 really athletic linebackers, really coming in to their own. And then you complemented well with Henry To'oTo'o, like I was saying earlier. So you get him at a 4-year, $55 million deal. It's a big-time contract for a linebacker. It's not the top contract for a linebacker. But if he's somebody who's really working well with DeMeco Ryans in this defense, so he's not somebody that you want to just let go of. And then you look at Dalton Schultz. You want to keep a veteran safety blanket for your second-year quarterback now, C.J. Stroud. Dalton Schultz complimented him really well. 3 years, this $37 million contract. Spread out the bonus there. It's a top-level tight end contract, but Dalton Schultz has been a top-level tight end for a couple years now, leaving Dallas and then still having a great season, I think. He's somebody you have the cap space, you keep him around. You don't want to be losing guys, especially at a position where there's no surefire upgrades for it. Maybe you can lose like your wide receiver 3, your wide receiver 4, because you can come in and get somebody else. Like Noah Brown's a free agent. Didn't really know what his value is going to look like. I think it's something that they can let the market determine, and then maybe even bring him back as well. But I think that they'll be looking to really upgrade the wide receiver room while they have guys on cheaper contracts. Nico Collins is going to probably have to get an extension now at some point, so you'll see how that sort of plays out. I think that'll be something where they might end up franchise tagging him if he does repeat what he did this year. And then you got Tank Dell, you got John Mechie, you got different types of players in there that you can play around with, but maybe getting another, contested catch type wide receiver could be on the agenda for them. So we're not really spending all that much money on re-signing people. We are going to keep some money here for free agency and to make some difference-making signings for both sides of the football, because you do have needs. This team definitely, I don't know if overachieving is the right word for it, but they do have needs. You want to get some more weapons in there. You want to get another wide receiver, and you want to get a true number 1 running back. Dameon Pierce is an early down back. I think he's going to be a very effective early down back. I think he can be a very effective short yardage back. But I think you want to get an all-purpose guy in there. I think the fact that Dameon Pierce did lose out a lot of his snaps to Devin Singletary this year, it's telling when a guy is available and he's not getting on the field all that much. And I think you want to look at the defensive line, particularly on the interior. You might want to get a second edge rusher to complement Will Anderson because you are letting Jonathan Grenard get to free agency. I think he's going to get a big payday. And you want to just build some defensive back depth, get some corners, get some safeties, get some, maybe like some dime linebacker types. You got Jalen Pitre, so maybe you want to get a compliment to him. And just get younger, I think, in the near defensive back room as Steven Nelson and Desmond King and Adrian Amos, who you are bringing back. But as they sort of age out, you want to be able to replenish that room with a lot more smoothly than trying to bring in rookies who have to get significant playing time early on. So I'm targeting two people in particular, one on each side of the ball here, for the two biggest needs I feel on both sides of the ball. The number one thing here is running back, and Saquon Barkley, there's a lot of rumors about him going to Houston, that being the ideal situation for him based upon the style of offense that they run, based upon their ability to actually pay him here. And it's going to be a 3-year, $38 million contract, throwing 2 bonus years in there to spread out the cap hit. And I expect a lot of the guaranteed money to be up front. But again, yeah, this is the right situation for him. This is more money than I think he would make elsewhere, obviously. It's top level running back money from a team that, again, can afford to do that. And then I'm looking at DJ Reader, who is a big-time space eater, but also somebody who can play on third down. He's sneaky good as an interior pass rusher, so I think his ability to be a 3-down defensive tackle for you that can play across the entire interior is an invaluable position for you to have. And you get him for 3 years, $50 million. Split the base salary and the bonus right down the middle, throw 2 void years in there. I love the void years, man. The void years make things so much easier and it helps you manipulate the cap so much better. But, again, you're paying 2 guys here that are your significant needs on both sides of the ball, that in these 1 signings per side of the ball, it actually takes both units to a different level, at least on paper. So you're in my opinion, this is a proper use of all this cap space. And again, I think you guarantee most of the money up front, so then it gives you outs later. Your quarterback contract is still years away. You got your left tackle who makes top tackle money, so you're always sort of working with that as well. You have to lock up your number 1 receiver, is it Nico Collins, but there still has so much cap room, and your top edge rusher still a long way away from getting re-signed. Your top corner is still developing, and he's still a couple years away as well. So you got some big contracts that are far enough way down the road where you can make these types of signings, where I think a lot of other teams just aren't in a position to be paying an interior defensive lineman and a running back top level money for their position in the same free agency cycle. So with all that, it still leaves them almost $26 million in cap space. And that's something now where you can look at guys like Noah Brown. You can even, depending on how you can structure the contract, maybe you do look at Jonathan Grenard and bring him back. Maybe that is a possibility. I don't know that it's likely, but I think you've opened yourself up to be able to bring back other guys that are currently on your roster that you currently have the first negotiation rights to, as they say, to bring those guys back. Maybe good locker room guys, good special teams guys, good depth guys, good situational guys. I think it keeps that door open for you, and it allows you to raise the floor of what the potential of the team is going into next season. Now, I've sort of touched upon what the draft strategy should be throughout this entire video, but now sort of really breaking it down. In that first round, I'm looking at the defensive line. I'm looking at Byron Murphy. I'm looking at Johnny Newton. I'm even looking at a guy like T'Vondre Sweat, who absolutely blew away at the combine. They talked about his 40 time, but they actually scaled his 40 time down to like the size of a wide receiver, and it was the equivalent to a wide receiver running like a 4.28. His 10-second split was very good for his size as well. So it's that quick get off the ball, which is almost a more important a more important measurable for a defensive lineman, in particular on the interior, is how quickly are you getting off the ball, more so than what your straight line 40-yard speed is, because the defensive linemen aren't really running that far. They're generally only traveling about 5-6 yards every single play. So it's that get off, how quick is that first step? How quick do you get to that second step? And I think that T'Vondre Sweat might have played his way into the first round, like I kind of predicted in the pre-combine video that I did for the mock draft. And I'm also looking at maybe you are looking at another edge guy going edge 2 years in a row in the first round with Chop Robinson. Maybe Darius Robinson from Missouri, who's a bit of a bigger guy, appeals to you. in that first round. Maybe you're trading back. I wouldn't necessarily trade back. I think you're in a position where you should get as many of these fifth-year option players as possible. But I think that first pick has to be somewhere on that defensive line. There's so many great defensive linemen that are going to be available potentially in that range. You're going to have your pick of the litter. Maybe Byron Murphy will be the one that's gone by then, but I still think Johnny Newton, Tavondre Sweat, Chop Robinson, Darius Robinson, Braylon Trice, those 5 guys I think are almost guaranteed to be there at that time when you're picking. Hey, if Byron Murphy drops, maybe you do want to trade up a little bit just to guarantee him, especially if you've gone out and gotten DJ Reader. You getting Byron Murphy is a nice little compliment there. Or maybe you just go double up and you get 360-pound Tavondre Sweat and 300 and whatever 30-pound DJ Reader, and you just completely change the dynamic of your rush defense, especially in the red zone. Day 2, I'm looking at the offensive line and wide receiver. This is where I'm going and grabbing those positions. And then day 3, I'm just getting value and depth, getting the best player available, good character players, guys that fit the culture and fit the systems that we're running. But again, another draft where there's a tremendous opportunity where they had such a great draft last year and they can go back to back here. It will take this team to, I think, where we thought Jacksonville would be coming into this last season. And it might jump Houston into contendership a lot earlier than I think we were maybe expecting. And there you have it. My 2024 offseason prediction video for the Houston Texans. Leave a like and a comment if you made it this far. I mean, look how far you made it. Please do that for me. It helps out, push this video out to more people. Interact in the comment section below, of course. And subscribe if you haven't already. Got lots of videos coming up, deep dive series coming up, more mock drafts coming up. And I appreciate you guys being here as always. And I will see you guys with the next video next time